because that's what happened. Kathleen just happened to do the mudslide first, the swing first, but I was the guinea pig. People will say to me, you know, wasn't that fun? No, that wasn't fun. And it was physically demanding. It was emotionally demanding. We were cold, we were wet. And for 2.5 weeks, you do something over and over and over. As a rule, you go in and shoot a stunt once, maybe twice. You know, it took a lot to get that on film.
I'm telling you, this has turned out to be one hell of a morning.
I love it. I mean, come on, I'm in my 40s and I'm still doing it full time, making a living at it. Excitement. It's something that, I mean, how many women in the world do what I do for a living?
When a neighborhood boy gets stuck on a farm rooftop in the Tom Selleck feature Her Alibi, it's the heroine, not the hero, who comes to the rescue. Co-star Paulina Porizkova finds herself called upon to take charge of the risk-filled endeavor. With his friends, Tom looks on in awe at her incredible athletic grace and prowess. Although he's madly in love with her, all he knows about the mysterious Romanian is that he's her alibi for a murder. This light-hearted suspense sequence involves as much skill and preparation as stunt work in a big action film, and will demand a full week's shooting in the broiling heat and humidity of July in Maryland. But of course the sweat mustn't show on camera, any more than the fact that Paulina couldn't actually do most of the wonderful things she just seemed to do. Chris Palomino, an accomplished gymnast and professional stuntwoman for 2 years, has been brought in from California to double Paulina.
Because it's like no normal human being could actually do it.
Thank you.
You're inhuman.
We'll then cut and do the shot with someone holding the horse.
For this sequence, director Bruce Beresford looks to Ronnie Rondell for the best, quickest, and safest way to bring off the rescue. A leading stunt coordinator and second unit director today, an outstanding stuntman since his teens, there's no aspect of the business he hasn't experienced firsthand.
Here, okay? Okay.
All set?
Yeah, I just got the
Go.
I'm not getting any.
Well, what happened, guys? She's on her way. Okay, go.
A stuntman's son, Ronnie's life has been devoted to the business. His son, Reed, had been making a name for himself as a top stuntman, too, when he fell victim to an ironic tragedy.
If it happens, it happens. The thing with losing our youngest son, Reed, it was after the shot. It had nothing to do with the stunts, and the helicopter crashed going back to the #1 position. But we take those chances. That's how we make a living.
Although most boys love to play around heights, Larry Nicholas explains why he's been stunt doubling the 7-year-old actor.
Children, you'd be surprised, they do get in a lot of trouble, and you know, they're minors and they don't want them doing none of the stuff, so they call us in, the smaller people, to do this. I was 24 when I got into the business, about 3 years ago.
And for about the same 3 years, Tom Selleck's been harboring a stunt-related frustration.
Well, there is one thing I'm waiting to do. I learned to do a Pony Express mount, which most coordinators are going to tell me don't do it, for High Road to China, and then they switched the location we were at. I had practiced every lunch this Pony Express mount, you know, where the horse runs by, I run over the horse, grab onto the corner of the saddle, and vault up and keep riding. And I was getting okay at it. I don't know how it looked after I got on the saddle, but I stayed in. And I thought that'd be great, you know, to actually do something like that on film. They changed the location, I never got to do it. So, I don't know, I have a Pony Express mount in my bag of tricks waiting, but I'm 43 now, and I don't know, it may not be the same. I probably weigh a little more. It's going to get harder to get up there, so it may just be in my own memory.
In comedy films, especially the creations of Blake Edwards, ranging from The Great Race to the Inspector Clouseau series, physical farce is a key element, with stuntmen working almost as much as the leads. When filming these gags, however, writer-director Edward seldom enjoys his own work.
I always have a sense of apprehension. I always do. I always get very nervous. The adrenaline gets going, just like the stunt guy, maybe not as much. I sit there and I have no control over it at all, other than I cooked it up. You know, I perpetrated this thing, and he could damn well get hurt by it. So I live in, for a few moments, of great apprehension, fear, if you will.
To alleviate his anxiety, Blake puts the responsibility for all risky action in the hands of Joe Dunn, his stunt coordinator and second unit director for many years. For the film Skin Deep, an unusual situation. Its star, John Ritter, must deliver dialogue during an unexpected calamity. That means John has to do the stunt himself. So, weeks before filming, Joe does tests with stuntman Jerry Spicer to determine just how big the surprise tidal wave can be without endangering the star. It's concluded that about 300 gallons of water ought to do it.
You won't believe it. There is a God, and he's a gagger. Okay?
Joe Dunn had the rare opportunity of doubling the late Peter Sellers in his last 5 Clouseau films.
When you're doubling for someone in a comedy, you should really try and look like them physically. Because comedy, you've got to take their little mannerisms and you've got to put that in, otherwise the stunt means nothing. Doubling for someone like Peter Sellers, who's a very funny man and walks funny and was in all different disguises, you had to try and get into his part as well. That's the most difficult part, I think.
In one film, a swimming pool had been filled with tons of Jell-O to get the desired effect. A first for all concerned.
I was getting interviewed by some English paper and they said to me, you know, what's going to happen? I said, well, the guy's going to dive into this pool of Jell-O. And they said, well, how'd you do that? I mean, as though I was an expert on diving into Jell-O. And nobody had ever done this, you know. And I said, well, I said, you just dive off the board and you hit the Jell-O and you come to a dead stop. He said, but how are you going to get him out? I said, well, he'll eat his way to the shallow end. And he's right in this town. He thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, that's real beach water.
2.5 to 3 seconds till it hits John.
It's 2.5.
The camera's ready, and the star, perhaps a bit apprehensive, set to deliver his line. But it's left to Joe to signal the all-important when.
And roll it.
Set.
Set.
Set. Shake! You won't believe it, but there is a God, and he's a gag writer!
Oh, God, that's...
You sure you're okay?
Yeah, just knock the wind out of me, that's
yeah.
In the action epic The Road Warrior, the legacy of Hollywood stuntmen to their talented Australian counterparts is quite evident. According to the film star Mel Gibson, they're alike in most ways.
I like to hang around the stunt guys on films, actually, because they're particularly, they're aware of watching each other's backs a lot, because a lot depends, you know, they bond. They don't even have to like one another, but they have to, in a way, show a kind of love and care for the safety and well-being of one another. You can recognize in someone, no matter what field they're in, if they're good at what they do, they seem to have a kind of a love for it and an enjoyment. They're glowing while they're doing it.
It's one thing to have the spirit and the courage and the athletic skills to be a stuntman, and it's quite another thing to have a long and successful career at it. The competition is stiff, jobs are sometimes scarce.
One of the best-known names in the business is Hal Needham. Controversial in some quarters for his aggressiveness in forcing greater respect for stuntmen on the industry, at 57, he's met countless challenges with a rare individuality. Now chairman of a camera car company and a leading film director,